Hey, it's Jared with Gear and Light. Today we're going to compare the ATEM Mini Pro to the AtomX Cast. Now these are two different devices that allow for live streaming and live switching of cameras. And I'll tell you the truth, when the AtomX Cast first was announced, I was really excited about it because I use their digital recording monitors. It's connected to the camera I'm looking into now. And then of course I have one here that I've had for a number of years. This is the standard V or 5 series, and then I have the V Plus or 5 Plus or whatever you want to call it attached to my camera in front of me. But I've increasingly had a need to do to have live streaming capabilities, and then also the ability to cut between different cameras and actually capture that recording. So when this device, the AtomX, came out, I was super excited about it, and I pre-ordered one. And then of course Atomos didn't have the software available for it for several months, which was frustrating. And when they did release the software, it was a little buggy. And that's what's leading me to doing this comparison video, because that led me to end up purchasing this ATEM Mini Pro. And I actually purchased a Extreme Pro ISO as well, just to kind of do some testing and try some different things. But I want to compare these and talk about them, because if you are considering purchasing one of these devices and you're not sure which one, you want to do some live streaming, you want that to be a simple process, you want to be able to switch between multiple cameras, and even have some additional features that improve that experience for both yourself and the people watching, I hope this video will be helpful. So with the ATEM Mini Pro here, it allows for 4 inputs. It has a single output, and I have this HDMI output running to a monitor right behind my camera that allows me to see the screen that I'm looking at. And so I can look and see my preview and program. I can see my 4 cameras. I can also record to this SSD. So I have this 2 terabyte SSD plugged into the back, and I can record an output of what I am seeing to the SSD, which could be used as a backup. It is only HD output. It does not allow for 4K, because I am capturing in 4K, but this device does not support 4K. It is an HD device. And even the ISO version, which there is the ISO version, a newer version, which essentially adds the ability to capture all 4 of your inputs to simultaneous files, or to individual files simultaneously. So rather than just getting one output that is the output of this switcher, so when I'm switching between the different channels, I'm only getting one video file that is that fully edited, I guess, edited on the fly by pushing the buttons, that file. But with the ISO version, I will get each of these individual feeds separate. I'll also get a final edit version that has all the cuts and everything in it, but then I'll, on top of that, get a file, a project file for DaVinci Resolve, which will allow me to go in and edit that entire thing in DaVinci Resolve. It'll have all of the video files there on individual tracks, and I can go and make adjustments and color correct and do all of those things within DaVinci Resolve. And so if you're on the DaVinci Resolve platform and you are wanting to edit the video that you cut live with the switcher, the ISO version is absolutely fantastic. And I may talk about that and actually show off that experience later in a video, because the Extreme model that I have has the ISO edition. And so if you're interested in going down that rabbit hole, definitely let me know in the comments, and perhaps I'll produce a video on that topic. So let's talk about the ATEM Mini Pro, then we're going to plug in the AtomX Cast and talk about it, and then I'll give you my thoughts at the end here. So what we have here is 4 HDMI inputs. These support HD up to 60p. We have 2 audio inputs as well. Of course, it supports audio over HDMI, and so I can turn on my audio feed, because my audio is in fact plugged into my first camera here. And so when I turn on audio, I'm able to enable audio just for that first track. Even though the camera above me is capturing audio as well, I could turn on that audio, but I don't want it because it's just in-camera audio. So I can manage audio on all of my different devices here, and also manage the levels here. I can increase and decrease the levels just by pressing a button, which is great. Things change in the environment, I can adjust the audio here and not have to worry about someone from the soundboard or where that audio source is coming from. There's also a feature called Audio Follows Video, and that feature means that as I switch, it's going to switch the audio, essentially only playing the audio for each video track. So if audio follows video, when I switch to track 2, it's also going to switch the audio to that track and disengage the audio from the first track. That's not what I want because my good audio is coming in through HDMI 1. Of course, using these two mic inputs, I could bring audio in through the back of the device using the 3.5mm jack. So I'd have to take that unbalanced audio and bring it in. It supports unbalanced audio, and so you would bring that in here, and you can make the adjustments on the device here by either turning them off and then increasing or decreasing the levels there with these arrows. I found that to be a little bit tricky because when I bring audio in and connect it, if things are plugged into the same outlets, there's feedback, and it's been a real challenge for me to isolate that. So it really is only going to work well in a professional audio environment where there's good isolation and you can separate and get cleaner audio coming into your device. So I've yet to really utilize these features here successfully. I just bring in audio through one of my cameras, and that's not a problem because I'm looking into an FX3, and an FX3 has a XLR input on it. So those are the features that we have here. We also have the ability to display a still image or just cut to black entirety here and just black screen, and that's it. If I do that, I've blacked out my screen. I can go right back, and if I had a still loaded in the media player, I could go ahead and display that. You can push media files and stuff to this device by connecting it via USB-C to a computer and then loading in some still files into the media player so that you can display those. If we look up here, we also have picture-in-picture as an option as well. What's great about picture-in-picture is without doing any editing or anything crazy, I could display a smaller version of a secondary camera on top of the main camera, and that process works pretty well. So if I go ahead and do that and maybe put it up in this corner, I now have my top-down camera, and then I have a small version of my main camera that I can move around the screen, which is great. I also can set my cut duration here, so if I want it just to go immediate, I can set that. I can also leave a longer duration and go into auto fade here, which sets the duration for the effect. And so as I go, now I've got a 2-second fade, I can go to a 0.5-second fade or a 1-second fade, and so the duration of the effect can be changed here as well. We also can change the effect itself. Right now it's just a crossfade. If I wanted to do a push, I can go ahead and set that, and now I've got a push effect. And so all these are really easily accessible right from the panel itself. These are things we're going to find a little bit more difficult to do in the Atom X, but that just is what it is. So we've got some transitional effects here, which are great. I'll just go back to cut. We also have our video out here as well. And so the video out that's going to the screen that I'm looking at, I can change this. I could press 1 and get a full screen view of my main camera. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can see all of my different cameras and get a big view on my screen. Or I can go back to multi-out. And on multi-out, I see my program, my preview, all 4 of my cameras. If I'm live streaming, I have a little heads-up display there that shows me the data transfer rates and if everything is good to go and how long I've been live streaming. I also have a recording tally that shows me that I am recording to the SSD, and it shows me how much more space I have left there. And it also supports 2 discs, so if I had like a little dongle that allows for 2 USBs, I could plug 2 drives in there as well, and it would write to both of those. And then I also have all of my audio meters as well, so I can view all of my audio levels and make changes as necessary. This is great to be able to view all of that stuff, and then of course I could just go program out and I could see exactly what everybody else is seeing, because that program is essentially the program what people are seeing. So multi-view is great because it gives you a heads up of everything that's going on. In the top right hand corner here, we do have the ability to chroma key green screen out. I could just hit on, and if I had a green screen behind me, it would cut that out. And so that's very simple. There aren't really any settings there unless you plug into the computer and use the ATEM software. You can't really configure anything else other than just on or off. We have the ability to start and stop recording to our disk. So our SSD that's plugged in, I could start and stop recording to it. And then we have our live stream off or on air. So if I have the live stream configured in the ATEM software that's on my computer, all I have to do is press on air and this will go live. Now, you can go live directly from this device. You don't even need to be plugged into a computer. You do have to have used a computer to configure it, but this has a Ethernet out on it. And if you plug Ethernet directly into it and you've configured this correctly, you can hit on air and live stream just by being connected to the internet. You don't even have to have this connected to a computer, which is great. Even to see my nice display that I've got with my preview program, 4 cameras, all that stuff, I don't need a computer for that either. So I'm getting a lot of really useful stuff without having to tie up a computer to use this ATEM device. It's very standalone. You do need a computer to configure some of those things, but you really don't need a computer to use it. I'm not using a computer right now to accomplish everything that I am talking about in this video. You simply need the computer to configure it, and then of course you can control it from a computer as well, which is another useful thing. So you can connect a computer through the Ethernet. You can also connect a computer to it via the USB-C. And what's great about this is that it connects as a webcam to your computer. So if you are wanting to set up a nice live streaming area and go and just live stream straight through your computer, or you wanted to use Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Skype or any of those, you can go straight out of this device right into your computer and have a really nice camera and even have multiple angles that you can switch between and stuff. It'll really step up your meetings, your virtual meetings and all that stuff as well. So the ATEM Mini Pro is a really powerful device for the price. And then there's the ISO model, which really just adds the ability to record your streams, your input streams directly to the SSD, and then of course it gives you that project file for DaVinci Resolve. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over now to the AtomX cast, and we're going to walk through that. All right, so now I have the AtomX cast connected, and you can see I've got 2 camera inputs going to it. I have a 3rd camera plugged in, but I just haven't turned that on. And it does support up to 4 inputs, just like the ATEM Mini Pro. And you get a nice display here. So what I do really like, and what was really just cool to me initially when I saw this device, is the fact that I have a display here and I can see everything that's going on. I don't have to have an external monitor to see what's going on like I have to have with the ATEM Mini Pro. So I have pretty much everything that I need right here in this device. I can see my inputs here and I can switch between them either by using the buttons, as you can see here, or just by tapping on the screen. I can see how much record time I have on my SSD because I could just put the SSD right into the device here and record directly to it. I have not just the ability to switch between the different inputs, but I can also add some overlays, and overlays can be added in by loading them onto your SSD and then accessing them on the device itself. I can control my audio and decide where I want my audio to come from. If I want it to come from number 1, number 2, number 3, or number 4, and those are all separate. And as I switch between these different functions here, you can see that the audio stays even if I go over to switcher and I'm switching between a different input, the audio stays where it's at. So it remembers that. And I do believe that there is an audio follows video option as well, like there is on the ATEM. And then I've got a picture-in-picture option as well where I can do picture-in-picture overlays, but I don't really like it, just like I don't really like the picture-in-picture of the ATEM Mini. So let's look at some of the additional features that we have here. We can set our fade in or fade out as we go between our different shots. I can go into settings, and on the switcher, I've got one touch, and so I can use one touch to switch or two touches to switch. And so that prevents like having two taps means that that's going to prevent you accidentally touching a quadrant on the screen and switching to that camera angle. We've got multi-view here, and so I can go output, so Ninja HDMI output. Do I want that to be the output of what everybody would see, kind of like program, or do I want it to be preview or multi-view? And then that output goes directly to whatever screen you have connected. I have a fade to color, and we have got black or white for fade to color, which that's it. I also can set transitions, and so dip to color or none. So very basic there, just simply a dip to color fade between the transitions, and it's not even that great of a crossfade. It is kind of a dip to black and then a dip in to the next scene, and so I'm not a huge fan of it. You can adjust the duration of that really easily, which is great. And then what do you want to record to the SSD? Do you want a clean program record, or do you want a cast record? And so clean is going to give you a clean video feed without the switching and the editing. And so you can still use your Atomos recorder to record a feed, or you can record the cuts and everything together into one. You can't do both at the same time. You have to choose one or the other. And so we've got our picture-in-picture settings here as well, where we can customize the size of the picture-in-picture, the inputs, the opacity. So if you don't want it to be, if you want to fade some of that so that you can see through the picture-in-picture a little bit, you can do that. And then you can turn picture-in-picture on and off here, as well as, of course, using the picture-in-picture option here. When you go ahead and add one of them, you can see that it's going to automatically enable that. And of course, I can turn it off right here. Moving over to overlays, here's where we would bring in PNGs. It supports PNG files. And so if we loaded some PNG files onto our SSD that is in the back of our Atomos, we can then bring them into the device here and load them in, and then decide where they want to go throughout the screen. These are going to work well for lower thirds or a title screen or something like that that you can throw on as an overlay. You can do an overlay that takes over the entire screen, and so when you throw one of them on, you can have that take over the entire screen, or you can just have them be locked to a specific position. And so when you select a media slot and then add the media, you then can choose where you want that to go. And then you can also choose a preset for it as well. And so when we do overlays here, we have the option for 4 of those, and so you can lock them. Even though this supports 8 overlays, you can tie 4 of them to the different buttons that are down below. So good and bad. That means 4 of them you're going to have to access from the menu. 4 of them you can access from the buttons. There's no way to get to 5, 6, 7, or 8 that I've been able to find. So you would select a file, and then you would choose where you want that to go once you've added the file, which is great. I mean, it's better than nothing, but it's definitely not a great solution. Where with the ATEM Mini Pro, there's a little bit more customization, not a ton more. Obviously, with the ATEM Mini Pro, we don't have a lot of options for adding overlays as well. With that device, you'd have to go to the extreme to be able to add more items from the device itself. However, when you're plugged in with a computer to the ATEM Mini Pro, you can send a lot more overlays, a lot more media files, and have access to those and switch between them utilizing the software. With the AtomX here, you're stuck to 8. But this is more of an on-the-go, minimal setup anyways, and so I'm fine with that. So of course we still have most of the other options here with the Atomos device. We do need to make sure when you connect this that you select the AtomX cast. It should do that automatically, but it doesn't always, and so you need to make sure to set that, because if you choose HDMI, it's going to choose one of the HDMI ports on the side of the Atomos instead of the AtomX cast. For inputs, you're basically locked into HD. It does support up to 60p, but HD is the maximum. You can go down in resolution as well, but you can't go up to 4K or 2.5K or anything like that. And the other bummer is that now with this device connected, there's no way for you to capture 4K. So for me, I have to, if I want to capture 4K off of my camera, I have to have an Atomos device connected to my camera so I can capture 4K. I can go out over HDMI into this device, and then I can utilize this device for live streaming and cutting of footage and stuff like that. But I'm limited to HD here. It would have been really great if this device would at least accept those 4K feeds, and then I could capture 4K on this device and then stream in HD. I'd be fine with that, but I can't do that. I have to have two separate Atomos devices for capturing 4K and then streaming in HD. So that's a bummer there, but it is what it is. It's limitations probably of the device, I guess. So we've got our inputs we can switch between here. We've got our outputs, which I can switch between an output going over HDMI or an output going over USB-C as well. I can plug a USB-C to HDMI adapter here and then connect to a monitor, and that is going to work. So we do technically have two HDMI outs on this device, which means I can have a multi-view, and I can also have a program view, which would be great if that's something that I wanted, but I can have one of those here on the Atomos screen, and then have one going out over HDMI that I can look at, which is perfectly fine for me. And then USB-C, you can go out to the computer, and just like you can with the ATEM Mini Pro, you can use this to send a feed to whatever live streaming software. I've connected this to OBS, just as I've done with the ATEM Mini Pro. You can connect this to Microsoft Teams, to pretty much anything that accepts a webcam input. This will be recognized as a webcam, and then you can connect to that software, which is great. That means this could be used for more than just live streaming. It could be used for meetings and all of that good stuff as well. Where I did find issues with connecting this to OBS, I mean, I really thought that I was going to be just like the winner with having this device, connecting it to OBS, and then utilizing OBS for pre-roll, post-roll stuff, lower thirds and all that good stuff, had OBS all set up and had this device connected. And then minutes before I was supposed to start a live stream, I switched back to this device to get the video up, and it would not connect. And it was like devastating because I had minutes to the device. So I started powering some things off, of course, leaving OBS on. Thankfully, I was using OBS because I was able to have a screen up so people who were seeing the countdown thing didn't know that there were any technical issues going on behind the scenes. I literally had to power off this device completely, power it off and power it back on to get it to reconnect in OBS. It wouldn't recognize it on the computer either, which was really frustrating until I powered it off and powered it back on. And then so I got it going again. I saw that it was working. I went back to my countdown screen, and same issue happened again. It disconnected from the device because it wasn't currently the active device in OBS. For some odd reason, the device just disconnected altogether. And so I had to power cycle it again. And once I got it back on, I did not leave that feed at all. I made sure that that scene was the one that was active, and I did not leave. What I was able to do is I would slide up and down the, you can order the layers essentially in OBS of what you want on top versus what you want on bottom. And so all I did was just click and drag up the graphic that I wanted over the top so that it wouldn't disconnect this device. But that's That's janky. That's not the way you should have to do things. And so it's very frustrating to me that this device was disconnecting like that. I have tested the ATEM Mini Pro and it does not disconnect in that instance. And so I don't know. If you are going to be live streaming and you want to be utilizing a device such as one of these in order to do that, and you want to use OBS or some other sort of software, I don't know. I just don't have a whole lot of faith in the AtomX cast. The software was super delayed. It was a little buggy upon release. It still seems a little buggy when you're trying to connect it to a computer. Buggy. It works really well if you just utilize it by itself, but it was really frustrating. Another thing that I found frustrating is that there was no way for me to go live, so I couldn't go live if I didn't have two inputs connected. So there's no using this device, and I guess there'd really be no need to use this device if you just had one device connected, but you cannot go live at all unless you have two devices connected. So if I disconnect, I guess, let's see, if I disconnect these two cables, essentially just leaving one device here. Of course, it's calling me a liar now and I can click the live button. But in the past, I wasn't able to click that live button at all. And maybe it has something to do with the fact that there was recently a device connected. But if I power cycle this, I'm just going to try it once just to make sure here. If I power cycle this and turn it back on, it may or may not allow me to live stream. And so if you're wanting to utilize this device simply for its ability to be essentially a webcam device, and having one device connected, I guess live is working. There was a software update since I utilized this last, and so they may have fixed that issue of being able to go live with one single device. Fantastic. Thank you, Atomos, for fixing that. It would have been nice if that wasn't the issue from the get-go, but here we are. So I'm going to be talking more about live streaming with these types of devices. I know this video was extremely long, so I hope that you used the timestamps down below to jump around as needed. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about live streaming, especially using wireless devices to connect to devices like this or the ATEM Mini Pro, because not all the time can we run wired cameras. Essentially, we want to put a camera somewhere. If we could transmit wirelessly to one of these devices, how does that work? I've got some content like that coming up. So if that's interesting to you, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you can be notified when new videos come out. If you found this one useful, give it a thumbs up. And if you are making a decision now based on having watched this video, I hope that you use the product links down below. It really helps when you use the product links. It helps support the channel here. They're affiliate links, but they don't cost you anything to use. They're Amazon and B&H photo affiliate links, and they just give me a little bit of commission for having referred the sale to them. So I highly appreciate that because it does help support the channel and keeps me making videos. So that's going to do it for this video. Thanks so much for being here today, and I hope to see you back in another one soon. Take care.